I've been feeling a little grumpy lately about the way meditation is presented in the West. In large part, I think because it leaves so much of the value and power and meaning of the practice on the table. So I'll rant a little bit. I'll explain to you why I'm grumpy, which I know is of great fascination. Uh, and also, I'm recording this podcast on video. So if you want to watch me rant, you're welcome to watch. The link will be in the show notes. Okay, so back to our topic, the way meditation is taught in our culture. And okay, thank you. Yay, science. You have proven that it is an awesome practice and it will help you in so many ways, mind and body. But there's a third way it will help you, and that seems to be left out of the discussion. And that is, I guess, what you would call spirit, which is a frightening word to us in the West for some reason. But we all know what is meant by spirit or energy, I guess we could call it. You know, you talk to this person about what happened to you today and you feel good. You talk to this other person about what happened to you today, same you, same experience, and you don't feel good. You walk into a room and it feels tense and you haven't even got both feet in the door. Or it could feel easy or light or dark and so on. And this tuning into the energies that are present is actually a really important part of the spiritual journey. It's not just about tuning into yourself and then end of story. Although, again, yay for self-awareness. Very important, needed. No one teaches you how to do it. Meditation will definitely deepen self-awareness. But I think what is making me grumpy about that is that it ends there and can turn into a kind of fierce self-absorption that is literally the opposite of what meditation is for. I mean, we have to start with ourselves. That's not a casual first step. It's the essential first step to start with yourself, to get to know your own mind, your own heart, how it all works between the ears and what you feel about various things. However, as I have understood it, the reason for practice is not about getting to know yourself only. That's just where it starts. But the real reason for our practice and what we are really trying to do is the opposite of that. We're developing self-awareness and openness and presence so that, drum roll please, we can be a benefit to others. And any school of meditation that leaves that part out, we're doing this so that we can help everybody, so that we can bring more joy, more sanity, more service, whatever it might be, has turned its back on the wisdom that gave rise to the practice itself. It was never imagined, I believe, as a way to withdraw, to retreat within yourself, and to perfect or improve anything about yourself. Rather, it's more likely that it was intended as a way of opening, first to yourself, as mentioned, then to others, then to this world, to trees, to water, to the earth itself. We are part of our ecology, and any meditation technique that focuses on removing ourselves from that ecology, which we can't do, but anyway, you know what I mean, but withdrawing from the world is half-assed. Just put it that way. And we want a full ass when it comes to our practice, because otherwise you're just living in your head, as they say. So much of the current view of practice is that it's a way to silo yourself, a way to separate yourself somehow, biohacking something or other, and perhaps even separating yourself from others by virtue of your spiritual insights and attainments, which are likely to be kind of hollow, if I'm being honest. So let me just say right now, I think that is a big fucking mistake. And I told you I was grumpy, and you can bleep me in your own mind if you'd rather that I didn't curse. Apologies. So one of the very interesting, although I'm not sure that's the right word, things about mind or consciousness, which is what we are working with in our meditation practice, whatever that practice might be, is that it doesn't even exist. If you know otherwise, get in touch. But on the ultimate level, the absolute level, there is no answer to the question, okay, mind doesn't really exist, now what? Just keep letting go. Peace out into the great vastness, which means you're a Buddha, and I'll be asking you for advice. However, and I imagine most of us here, don't live in the absolute permanently, not Buddhas. I live in the relative world, and there is in the relative world an answer to the question, okay, mind doesn't really exist, now what? We got an answer. And that is to begin with the understanding, which you must test for yourself. Don't take my word for anything, and I really mean that, that it only exists in relation to what it encounters. It does not have a separate existence, mind, consciousness, as you wish to call it. When we see something beautiful, our mind is happy. When that thing is gone, the memory of it may bring happiness, but that too will fade. And when we see something unhappy, well, you do the math. The same logic applies. In Buddhist thought, mind is considered a sense perception, like eyes and ears and nose and so on. And like eyes and ears, for example, doesn't come preloaded with images or sounds. So our mind doesn't walk around with preloaded opinions and ideas. It is space itself. It is spacious. And whatever we may do with it, to the contrary, having thoughts and opinions and ideas and so on, some of which I'm sure are quite wonderful, are the result not of mind being brilliant, but of habitual patterns, whether they date back to something that someone said that hurt your feelings when you were 4, or some other lifetime. I don't even know about that kind of thing, but genetic makeup, all sorts of things can generate these habitual patterns. But your habitual patterns are not embedded in the object of your perception. Something to think about. So we tend to perceive according to our history and our theories rather than by pure perception. And as Nagarjuna, the great Indian sage of, I believe, the 2nd century, and philosopher of the Middle Way school of thought, said, as I have no theory, I am free from error. So if you want pure perception, you could consider freedom from theory as being errorless. Thanks, Nagarjuna. I actually find that very helpful. So back to our tuning into the energies notion. Usually when we tune in to a person or an experience, what we are actually doing is tuning in primarily to our own energy in response to the energy we encounter, and then describe it on bad days as emanating from that person. Got bad vibes. Well, okay, it's real. You got to pay attention to that. But from what input is your evaluation emanating? So, as mentioned, since mind only exists, according to this theory, in relation to something, we could parenthetically interpret this as meaning only good vibes. I only want to think about happy things, no negativity. And that is, I'm sorry, very cowardly and silly, I'd say, because you're cutting out half of life, not to mention half of the world right now, at least, and relying on your own theories of what is positive and what is negative. So things like good vibes only and so forth, those are acts of aggression. I don't want this to be what it is. I'm only going to work with what I think it ought to be. And even worse, I would say more deleterious to your spiritual practice, is it actually obscures your mind by insisting on your version of reality rather than what came before your version. And as you may know, presence of mind is the essential first move when it comes to the essential aims of meditation, which are to be of benefit through, we could say, loving kindness and compassion. Those are good words to start with. So, but let's first dispose of the idea that loving kindness and compassion are nice things to do, or they mean you're a good person. You could be a terrible person, which I'm sure you're not, and still be really good at tuning in to others and feeling what they feel. Actually, loving kindness and compassion are not just things that good people do. They are things that fierce Ronin warriors do, since they are predicated not on being nice, but on being open to see what is, and thereby able to know what could actually be useful. It has much more to do with being awake. So when we say, oh, well, okay, a nice Buddhist lady said I should try to be awake and see what's going on and what other people might feel, when we do, it is very understandable when it comes to loving kindness and compassion to have one of two responses. First, oh, your suffering makes sense to me. Freely give you my loving kindness and compassion. I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through. Number two, your suffering does not make any sense to me. In fact, it's probably your own fault, or it makes me angry, or you deserve it, and so forth and so on. Therefore, I'm either going to ignore you or try to bypass my revulsion or distaste and prove my spiritual merit by acting nice. That's a better choice, but still not very good. And both of those two things are also forms of aggression. I am putting myself first here, and I am feeding your experience through my perception and assessment of that experience. And guess who gets left out of that? You. So, as mentioned, loving kindness and compassion seem to blossom organically. It's how we're wired when we simply open and then keep opening. That's very scary and it's vulnerable. And you should be very judicious about this whole idea of opening because mind mixes with what it encounters. And though we want to be attuned to others and care about their suffering, it's really easy to be overwhelmed and decommissioned on our spiritual journey when we have compassion fatigue, as it is sometimes called. So it's very hard to do this. It's scary and it's vulnerable and so on. So should you want to start, what do you do? I have two suggestions. The first is, I regret to inform you, you must have a meditation practice. I mean, that's a little strong. Most people benefit in this way from a meditation practice, whatever it is, that is real. That's the most important thing. That teaches you how to parse your own thoughts, your own experience, and continually tease apart what you respond to from the thing that you are responding to. That's where compassion and loving kindness begin. The second suggestion, and this is a long-winded one, is to cultivate some very personal understanding that other people do not see, feel, parse, and attend to various details of experience as you do. They work in a different way. So when I teach people how to teach meditation, which is kind of my favorite thing to teach, and we have a new course starting mid-January, just saying, the first thing I suggest that a meditation teacher does is find a way to tune into the mind of your student. You could find a way to tune into the mind of your friends, people you live with, people you work with. So this applies. And what comes in extremely handy here, a roadmap for doing this, is my best friend, the Enneagram. So I'm not going to go through the whole Enneagram. I talked about it a little bit last week, but I want to go through three particular aspects of the Enneagram system that I have found, and I think you will find, invaluable in tuning in to other people's minds so that you can begin to separate your energy from theirs and see them clearly, which they tend to really enjoy. So you may know all this. I hope you'll enjoy hearing it again if you do. The Enneagram is 9 numbers. It posits 9 kinds of people. I wrote a book about this, by the way, called The Buddhist Enneagram. So if you really want to take a deeper dive, I hope that book will be useful. But in any case, the 9 numbers are divided into 3 groups of 3 by what is called center of intelligence. The first, comprising Enneagram numbers 8, 9, and 1, or maybe that's bad English. Anyway, it doesn't matter, is called the intuitive triad or the gut triad. You possess all 3 of these forms of intelligence, by the way, but one of them predominates. And the intuitive triad people are those who move through the world needing to know what their gut tells them before they know what it is. Like you could explain it to them, you could have charts and graphs, you could have theories, and the gut person is going to be like, well, okay, I've got to wait until I get a hit on this myself. Fine, good. The second form of intelligence, which includes Enneagram numbers 2, 3, and 4, are called the emotional triad. And these are people who move through the world relying primarily on their emotional intelligence. Doesn't mean they're more emotionally intelligent than you or anything like that. It just means until someone of this intelligence knows what they feel about something, they don't know what that something is. So there's a refracted relational occurrence between a heart person, as they're sometimes called, and what they encounter. And something has to ping in the heart center, not because they have more feelings or more sensitive or anything like that, but in order for understanding to take place. And then the final triad, 5, 6, and 7, the mental triad. These are the people who want the charts and graphs in order to understand something. They want the history, they want the treatise, they want the degrees, they want the logics that underpin something, and then they understand what it is. That way of understanding is preferred in our culture, but it's only one of 3. So you may think, quite rightly, well, I have intuitions and I have feelings and I like to think about things. How do I know which one I am or which one this other person is? So that's a complicated question, and to me, a fascinatingly complex question. But you could start by looking at what each triad, which each form of intelligence tends to do, very broadly speaking, because there's much more nuance than what I'm about to say, in response to pain. So, challenge, obstacles. The gut triad people are like, I see it, I'm going for it, my gut tells me, oh, something interfered. They get angry in the face of obstacles. Everybody gets angry, but for these people, third of the people you know, maybe including yourself, the first response is anger. I knew someone once who had been married for almost 60 years, and her husband was dying. And, she had all the feelings that a person might feel at such a moment. They'd lived together in the same house for 60 years, children, so forth and so on. Her response, I was talking to her once as he was on his deathbed. We were in a different room. And she said, he told me he'd never do this to me. Like she was angry at him for dying. And my first response was, chill. But upon further reflection, I thought, well, this is her pain. This is how she's saying her pain. As long as she doesn't say it to him. Okay. 2, 3, and 4, the emotional triad, when things don't go their way, the emotions go out of whack. So that can look like numbness, depression, just no feelings, or its corollary, like neediness, grasping. Do you like me? Am I cute? Oh, how's my butt look in these jeans? I mean, that's a silly example, but reaching out for constant reassurance or turning off the heart center. Again, we all do this, but some people do this first. And then the mental people, the 5, 6s, and 7s, when things don't go their way, the mental processes speed up and they think harder and they get more charts and more graphs and more history and more data and more facts, more research. And that can be great. But when it's a response to anxiety, not so great. So thinking speeds up. I could do this, I could do that. They said this, I'm going to go over here. And what if she does this? Then I'm going to have to sell that. And that's called anxiety, as mentioned, or a kind of paranoia. So again, we all do all three of these things, but one of them is our go-to first. And for the people you're in a relationship with, I'll give you an example. Myself, I'm in a relationship with someone who is a 1 on the Enneagram in the gut triad, and his response to difficulties is anger. I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, the heart peoples, and my response is to try to understand what I'm feeling and why. That's very hard to do when someone's angry at you. And when you're angry and you want to engage with someone who has hurt you or upset you or who you need to talk something out with, and they're like going in going, I need to think about my feelings, that's frustrating. We're both right and we're both wrong. But it helps to know that his default response is different than mine, and they both are respectable. So that's one thing to think about when you're trying to tune into the energy of other people and feel them as separate from yourself. Do I think they're running on heart energy, head energy, belly energy? You'll be wrong most of the time. I am, but over time, you're less wrong. The second set of definitions that come from the Enneagram or are used by the Enneagram, probably more accurate, is the most helpful. This is the most helpful thing to know. And it's called in the Enneagram system, the 3 instinctual drives. So you have all 3. I have all 3. But one of them is predominant. And the 3 instinctual drives are self-preservation. Just a fact. We're all attuned to threat and danger. We don't want to be killed. We're concerned with survival. Some people, of course, much more than others. But in all cases, we are wired to be alert and to fear things that could destroy us. Smart, but you can go too far with it at the same time. The second instinctual drive is called the social drive. We all have it, and it's the part of your wiring that wants to engage with a tribe, with a community, with a neighborhood, with some sort of a group. You want to find your place in that group. Again, whether it's your household or a country, or you want to be associated with a society. And for 1/3 of us, that's the first thing that they want. I say they because I'm a self-preservation person. I don't understand this wanting to be involved with a group. Anyway, side note. And then the third instinctual drive that we all have is called the sexual drive or the intimate drive. And it doesn't just mean you want to have sex with people all the time. I mean, it could. But here, what it means is you want to connect with someone in all the circumstances of your life. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you want to be seen. You want to share an experience with another person. And if that's you, you might think, well, I don't know what the other 2 of you doing, but clearly this is the best thing to share experience. Well, not really, not for everybody. So again, we all have all 3 of these drives, but I'll give you a short example of how you might understand these drives, should you need it. So the example I like to use is the 3 instinctual drives, self-preservation, social, sexual, are going to a conference for work in another town. And the self-preservation people, and I'm speaking from personal experience here because this is my primary drive, are thinking about, well, where am I going to sleep? Will I be too cold? Will it be too hot? What if I don't like the food? If I want to leave, how do I get out? I mean, I'm not worried someone's going to kill me, but I want my physical body to be comfortable. That's going to make me feel safe. So should I bring my own pillow? Maybe I need 3 scarves instead of 2. That's where my mind goes as to our self-preservation friends around the Enneagram world and just around the world, I'd say. That's the first set of things they think about. The social subtype people or instinctual drive people are thinking about, how do I feel about being part of this group? Am I proud of it? Do I want to, brag about it, or do I want to kind of shy away from it? And when we're together, how will the room be arranged? Will we be able to see each other? Will people be able to see me? Do I have something to offer? Do I have something to gain from these other people? If they go out to eat after the meetings or whatever they are over, they invite me. So that's really different from, I better bring my own snacks. All of these things make sense, but they're different. And then the sexual subtype people or instinctual drive people will be thinking things more like, will there be someone there who I can share this experience with? Someone with whom I can talk it over, someone who will get me, someone who I will be able to see. When we're listening to our talks or our whatever it is we're meeting about, we can side eye and laugh at things or meet afterwards and go, can you believe that he said that? Like, what does that even mean? Obviously, things that human beings do, but they're different. So again, I'll use my own life and my own marriage as an example. I am a self-preservation 4. I am like, where's the damn snacks? It's too cold in here. I'm bringing my own pillow. And my husband is a sexual 1, number 1 on the Enneagram. So he is attuned to how much are we sharing of the current thing that we're doing, going to a movie or making dinner or whatever, doing things that married people do. And I'm not thinking about those things. So I happen, for whatever Enneagram or other reason, I need to be alone a lot. I am wicked introverted. And my nervous system is whatever, frazzled. For whatever reasons, I could make up all sorts of things. I don't really know. So I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I can drop the burden unless I'm alone. And then I can relax. Now, my husband is the opposite. He gets kind of anxious when he's alone for too long. And he feels that he can exhale and expand and put down the burden when we're in a loving embrace, when we're in a loving environment, when we're together. So this requires a lot of navigation. And if we were both one of these, it probably would not be a very deep marriage, which I would say it is. We've been together for almost 30 years, learning to make space for each other with love and irritation and grumpiness and confusion and so on. So, okay, when you're trying to sense other people's energy, it can be helpful to begin to tune in which one of these 3 instinctual drives is guiding them. And then the final thing I'll say about these divisions of humans, as I learned from the Enneagram, this final set of 3 was not generated by the Enneagram. It was posited by a German psychoanalyst from, I think, the 1940s, named Karen Horney, Horney. You pronounce it the way you want, who suggested what is called the directional theory of response to pain. So we do one of 3 things. One of them is predominant. We either move toward the object of our distress, to pacify, to make friends, let's talk this through, everybody calm down, to sort of diffuse the danger. That can be good. Or the second third of people move against the object of danger. I'm going to defeat it. I'm going to take it down. I'm going to get rid of it. Sometimes that's good. But those are very different, as I'm sure you can see. And the third, and my preferred, is to move away from the object of danger. Just going to do something else. I'll come back to it later, maybe. It's too threatening. I'm going to, this is me talking to myself, try to focus instead on what I can do that is helpful. And that's not a terrible philosophy, but it can be a hiding place. So the people you meet or in relationships with or strangers or whomever, they're going to do one of these 3 things first if you're in a contentious situation together. They're going to try to pacify. Good luck. If that works, that's the best one. They're going to be aggressive and try to defeat or diminish what is threatening. Sometimes that's good, usually not. Or they're going to go do something else. Now, in Buddhism, these three responses, toward, against, away, passive, aggressive, delusional, are called the three poisons. And just as Karen Horney posited, and the Enneagram suggests, Buddhist wisdom, in its very original teachings, wants to draw your attention to the three poisons, the things that occlude vision. I think that's the right word. The things that disturb presence, and therefore the capacity for loving kindness and compassion. So I think / hope we've come full circle here. And on another super lofty note, I will end this talk, because we got our musical after party coming up, by saying, perhaps you could say, if you want to know what is enlightenment, I don't know. That's the real answer. But you could consider that it has something to do with dissolving the habitual patterns mentioned earlier. Whatever stands between the small y, you, and the objects of your perception, dissolving the habitual patterns of perception, dissolving theories, to encounter perhaps a different kind of perception, which is called pure perception, and is an aspect already in place of your ordinary original mind. Your Buddha nature is the wakefulness, the spaciousness, just beneath the habitual patterns of mind. So, thank you so much for listening. As I began last week doing, I want to talk about music because I love music, and I hope you will bear with me. We talked about a song that I loved called Christine Leroy, and unfortunately for myself, I can't fall asleep because I'm hearing it in my head, so try not to have that happen to you. And this week, I want to share my love for a guitar player to whom I was introduced by one of my dearest friends, who's also a guitar player, Derek, who composed the music for this podcast. So thank you, Derek. I love it. And that guitar player that I'm talking about right now is not Derek, although he is great. His name is Peter Green. And he died, I think, maybe in the 90s. He was 70, wasn't a youngster. But he was a founding member of a band you may have heard of called Fleetwood Mac. It has gone through many iterations in their lifetime. And this is the early days of Fleetwood Mac, where they were a blues band. And Peter Green, I mean, you can't really go overboard with words of praise for that guy's guitar playing. First of all, for myself, I don't like a wanker. I don't like someone playing a lot of notes. I don't want to show off. You show off somewhere else. I want to hear someone who's feeling it and then playing it from that. And you don't know what it's going to be. So way long ago, probably the 80s, I was listening to the radio, as one used to do, and I heard a song called In the Skies. And it said, that's In the Skies by Peter Green. It's also the title of his new recording, In the Skies. I didn't know anything about blues. I didn't know anything about music. I was like barely in high school or something. But I got that record, like the actual record. And I have listened to it 100 bazillion times since then. It's still one of my favorite recordings of all time. It's called In the Skies. And another thing about Peter Green's guitar playing, besides its soulful quality, and this is remarked upon by guitarists around the world, is what is called his tone. You know, every musician has a tone. Every guitar has a tone. But it's not just the tone, it's the player and the guitar that make the tone. And he has this kind of sparkly, biting, sweet, at the same time, tone. That's how I describe it. I don't know anything. I'm not a musician. I don't play guitar or anything else. Anyway, I think he played a Les Paul guitar, which often when I hear that, sparkly thing that I love in guitar tone, the person's playing a Les Paul. But You probably could have given him any guitar, and it would have sounded like this. That guitar had a name. It was called Greenie. And there are guitar players around the world right now who are like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of Greenie." And it went into storage somewhere, it, like, lost nobody knew where Greenie was for some decades. And then according to the lore, someone found Greenie, and it is now owned by the guitar player for Metallica, Kirk Hammett, I believe his name is. Anyway, Greenie, thank you, Greenie. So I have 2 tracks that I'm gonna share with you, but we're just gonna play the first, like, 20 or 30 seconds here, but there'll be links to the full track in the show notes because maybe I'm breaking some copyright law, I don't wanna do that. And the first song is Tribal Dance from the record Mentioned in the Skies. And you'll hear that bite, you'll hear that sparkle, you'll hear that, "Oh my god, I never heard anything like this before. I wanna keep hearing it all the time." I believe that's how you're gonna feel. And then the second song is much more well-known, probably among old people and guitar players, uh, and it's called Albatross. And it is one of the sweetest things I have ever heard. It's so simple. It's so spacious. There's a second guitar player back there, maybe Danny Kerwin, I'm not sure, who is holding down the fort for these beautifully spaced out chords and notes from Peter Green on the song Albatross. Now, if I'm stressed out and I can't sleep, one or both, I put on Albatross on repeat and I listen to it over and over and over and over again. It is unknown song to most people nowadays, but it was very influential in probably the 60s on bands like, oh, I don't know, the Beatles. So you could Google Albatross by Peter Green. I hope you'll enjoy listening to these songs, and I thank you so heartily for listening to me share my love of music with you and come up with something else next week. So, as always, as we podcasters say, if you like this podcast, you could review it, you could share it with someone. That would be the best. If you want to ask me a question that I can answer on this podcast, which I would be very happy to do, you can DM me on Instagram, or we're making a forum where you can just type your question in, and if I want to answer it, I'll let you know in advance so you can look for it. And think about becoming a meditation teacher. The training starts mid-January. Thank you for listening.